Close the eyes. Begin to clear the mind of anything that needs to be done in the coming days, especially with Thanksgiving. I'm sure some of you have preparatory stuff on the go. Set it aside. It's nice to remind yourself that there's nothing that you need to do for the next hour, but breathe and enjoy the experience of being in your body. Some days more enjoyable than others. Nonetheless, the capacity to get down on the floor and back up again and all the movements that we do already kind of ahead of the game in many ways. So the feet are wider than hip width, the knees drop in towards each other. Take one hand onto the front ribs and just allow the weight of that hand to draw the front ribs down so that the back ribs are drawing more towards the earth. The result of this is the navel draws a little bit closer to the low back, and the low back can lengthen out. After doing that, either take one hand onto the belly if you want to really focus on ensuring that you have deep belly breathing, or bring the arms alongside of you, or to rest on the upper thighs, wherever your hands will naturally go in their most relaxed position, just not overhead, at least not yet. If you have something for under your head, use that now. Just bring it to the top of the shoulders, not beneath the shoulders. And you would benefit from doing that if, when lying down, your chin is higher than the forehead. Draw the chin just slightly down towards the chest and bring your awareness to all of the points of contact of your body with the earth. The right foot, the left foot, the back of the right hip, right side of the tailbone, and the left. Observing whether one feels heavier, for example, than the other. Does one foot feel more forward than the other? Any of those imbalances, just notice if you can see that they exist. Feel the rib cage, and as you inhale, draw the back ribs towards the floor. Can you feel the right side ribs more than the left? The shoulder blades, triangular shaped bones. Does the right side or the left feel heavier? The position of the head. Does it veer more to the right or to the left? The shoulders. Here's a really common one, is one shoulder lifted higher than the other. You do this brief head to toe body scan right at the start of the practice so that you can get a sense for your typical imbalances before moving through the motions that we do in yoga. Then take your awareness to your breath and start to breathe a little more deeply. Either put the hand back on the front ribs again, or imagine that your hand is on the front ribs as you inhale. And try to guide the breath beneath that hand into the low belly. So when you breathe in, you don't feel the ribs lifting upwards towards the ceiling. If you were to exaggerate that and get a sense for how that feels on your low back when you breathe, you could take a hand here, inhale, do that, and notice the arching that would occur in the back. So instead, let the weight of the hand draw the front ribs towards the earth, or you're imagining that the hand is there, breathing your back ribs towards the earth. as though bypassing that hand to pull the breath down deep into the lower belly. Now, as a sidebar, of course, you're not breathing into the lower belly. Your lungs don't go that far, but it feels that way. It's a good instruction. When you exhale, the navel draws back towards the spine. Press out every last little bit of air and squeeze the abdominals at the end of the exhale. A little bit of emphasis on abdominal contraction. And a full deep breath in. This type of breathing is a little bit different than the relaxation, full belly breathing, because you're not really letting the belly just expand or relax completely. You still have some of that core awareness, that tone that's supporting the lower back. A few more deep breaths like that. So if you were trying to use deep belly breathing for sleeping, then you could just let the belly hang out. You don't need that low back support. But for today's class, always that tiny bit of awareness, a little bit more on the exhale as you squeeze the belly, emptying out the lungs. So full deep breath in, down towards the lower belly. Exhale, navel to the spine. Then you can take your hands to the side ribs, fingers point towards the midline of the torso, and inhale your rib cage out to the sides. So it's still not rising upwards towards the ceiling, but you get the expansion of the ribs, stretching the intercostal muscles. Breathing in, rib cage horizontally out to the sides into the hands. Exhale, everything drawing back down towards the earth. Full deep breath in, still not pressing the ribs to the ceiling, just outwards to the sides. And exhale, rib cage drawing back inwards and navel to the spine. Now count the length of your inhale. Aim for a 3 or 4 second breath in. And a 3 or 4 second breath out. 2 more deep breaths like that. And take the arms down alongside of the body. Walk the feet in towards each other. Straighten out the legs. We'll do a full body stretch to start. Inhale the arms up overhead with your right hand. Take your left wrist. Rotate your left palm towards the floor so the baby finger rotates slightly towards the earth. Hinge over to the right side. Lift your head, move it an inch to the right. Bring your gaze upwards towards the sky. Have that imaginary hand on the front ribs. Inhale your back ribs towards the mat and lengthen out through the lower back. Then walk the right hand a little bit closer to the elbow. And you may notice how this brings your awareness further down the side body to the lower left side waist, as opposed to pulling up through the shoulder itself. Establish that sensation, lengthening through the left side body, and then bring the hand back to the wrist. Walk your feet to the right. Squeeze the inner thighs gently towards each other. The inner thighs hooked into the pelvic floor, hooked into the lower abdominals, hooked into lower back support. And cross the left ankle on top of the right, still squeezing the thighs in towards each other. And that's not a tight gripping of the leg muscles, just that sort of 20 or 30% of your maximum muscular effort. Come back to center, uncross the feet, lower the arms down. I like to take that little bit of a break between the two sides. Tilt the pelvis forward when you inhale. You can feel that sense of relaxing the belly muscles. Exhale, send your tailbone forward, push your low back into the mat. Push your low back into the floor. Feel the abdominals engage. So don't move through tilt and tuck with the pelvis in autopilot mode. Really bring your awareness to the pelvis. Inhale, feel the belly muscles relax. Exhale, send the tailbone forward, squeeze the abdominals. Tilt and tuck. So oftentimes the muscles already know what their job is, but if we haven't been using them for some time, then they just need a little reminder, a little moment of awakening. Walk the feet forward, legs straight. Take an inhale, stretch the arms up. Left hand takes your right wrist, turn your palm towards the floor, hinge to your left. Lift the head, move it an inch, left, take your gaze to the sky. Notice how when you tug on the wrist, chances are you're feeling that mainly in the shoulder. So walk the hand a little bit closer to the elbow. Take that awareness down through the side body, not only into the rib cage, but below the lowest rib, right into the lower side waist. Then you can bring the hand back to the wrist. Having brought your awareness there, you can keep it there and walk your feet to the left. Press forward with the inner arches of the feet. Without looking, draw the baby toes and only the baby toes upwards in the direction of your ears. And cross the right ankle on top of the left, still reaching with the inner arches of the feet. Squeeze the inner thighs together. And come back through center, uncross the legs. Lower the arms down, walk the heels in towards your hips, tilt and tuck with awareness. It's kind of like your cat-cow if you're on all four. It's basically the same movement. And notice how the movement of your tailbone influences the position of your head. When the pelvis is tilting forward, the chin drops down. When you're scooping the tailbone under, the chin lifts up. So that's going to happen with whatever you do in the course of the day when the position of your pelvis moves. Now, once you come back to center, take the soles of your feet together and drop the knees out to the sides away from each other. Try to seal the baby toe side of the foot right inwards, helping to release the knees outwards. Bring the hands to the inner thighs. Diagonally, draw the inner thigh muscles towards the inner knees. Not pushing the knees down, more this sense of lengthening. Using your mind's eye, does it feel as though one side is longer than the other, or one knee is higher than the other? This can be interesting. So determine, just using the mind's eye without looking, if one knee is higher than the other. And then do a little crunch, look up, see if that is in fact the case. And if possible, adjust. Connecting with the deep core abdominals, transversus abdominis, take your two fingers, the peace fingers, bring them to your front hip bones and walk them in about an inch and up about an inch. Actually, take your hands, guide the knees together. We'll do it like this first. Scoop the tailbone under, send it forward, bring the fingers, front hip bones. So same thing. Draw them in about an inch and up about an inch. This is a slow motion, deep mindfulness sort of practice, so try not to rush it. But when you pick the left foot up, and you don't have to lift it high. You're paying attention to what's under the fingertips here. So don't worry about how high the leg lifts. It's even just the toe hovering above the mat does the job. Do you feel something engaging under the fingers? Try it with the right. Is something engaging there? Wow. Notice if there's a difference between the two sides. So welcome to the transversus abdominis muscles. If one side is firing far more strongly than the other, then you know you've got a notable imbalance in terms of the abdominal muscles, which can translate into any number of things, but low back pain being predominant one. So just pay attention to that. And if you did notice an imbalance, continue the little marching here. How would you shift? What would you change in order to wake up the one side or the other if it's not moving, or to engage it more strongly so that you're moving towards more balance between the two sides? If you're not sure if you can feel it, really slow down. So those are the TAs, transversus abdominis. Now bring the soles of the feet together. Fingers, front hip bones. We're going to locate that same area, draw them in slightly and up slightly. Imagine you're trying to put on a pair of skinny jeans. I know you wouldn't do that, maybe not at all, but definitely not with the legs out like this. But imagine that you are trying to pull them on with the legs like this and kind of zip up through the lower core like that. Now, when you lift the one knee up slightly, is there any movement beneath the fingers? Looking for that same type of movement as when the knees were up. I mean, in fact, you don't want to feel it, but it may be what you're feeling under the fingers. So you're looking to see something that you don't want to find, essentially. And if you do feel that movement under the fingers when you're drawing one knee just slightly up and then the other, how can you quiet those muscles? What would you have to do to not feel any movement beneath the fingers? In other words, to disengage those deep core abdominals. Then use your hands, bring the knees back up through center, separate your feet, preparation for bridge pose with a block. Oftentimes people experience, myself included, once upon a time, low back pain in bridge pose, which should not be the case. And it's a very good pose to be practicing at any age, but especially as we get older, to avoid that hunchback position, roundedness through the upper back, kyphosis. You want the feet separated the same distance as the knees, outer edges of the feet aligned with the outer edges of the mat. So you want it to be a pleasurable experience, not one that's miserable and not one that's creating low back tension. See if you can feel when you press slightly inwards into the block with the inner thighs, have it a bit closer to the knees than the upper inner thighs. Press gently inwards, 20 or 30% of your maximum effort, but also imagine spiraling the block forward. So it's slightly inward and forward. Can you feel your abdominals engaged when you do that? So inward, forward, in, forward. Inner thighs contract, abdominal tone. That's the position that you want to find as you move into a bridge pose. Take an inhale, squeeze the block in, forward. Exhale, lift the hips. Keep that tension with the block. Only lift as high as you can without any low back strain. So of course, you're naturally engaging the inner thigh muscles in order to not drop the block. That's the great thing with using the block as a prop. It's a good reminder. Is the lower back arching? Send the tailbone forward. Gently squeeze the block. Spiral the block forward. Where do you feel the effort in this pose? Is it in the upper thighs? Thumbs up. Is it in the glutes? Thumbs up. Is it in the low back? Thumbs down. No pinching or compression. Squeeze the glutes. Make sure that they're engaged. Wake them up. And slowly curl down one vertebra at a time. As soon as your hips come to the mat, you'll see which muscles relax. So hips come to the floor. And where is the relaxation? If it was in the bum, kind of tilting the pelvis forward, that's good. Tailbone forward, squeeze the block in, spit it forward, press into the feet, slowly lift the hips up. If you do feel that low back strain, don't lift as high. So it's not to say don't do the posture at all. See if you can find a height that is a pre-low back strain. And maybe nobody feels any low back pinching or compression in this pose, and I'm just wasting my breath. Maybe let me know after class. Tailbone forward, make a fist with your butt muscles, gently squeeze with the inner thighs, and not only the inner thighs, all the way down towards the inner knees. Also press the block in from there. Curl your way down, one vertebra at a time, sending the tailbone forward. Pay attention to the muscles that relax as your hips hit the mat. One more time. Tailbone forward. Squeeze the block, spiral it forward, squeeze your bum, lift the hips up, pre-low back strain height. Take one hand to your front ribs, soften the front ribs down. Do you feel how this lengthens through the lower back? Squeeze the block all the way down towards the inner knees and press the inner edges of your feet firmly into the floor. Take one more inhale. And exhale, exhale, lower, and relax. Place the block to the side, bring the soles of your feet together, drop the knees out to the sides. Take the arms overhead in a diamond shape. And you can bring the hands together overhead, even if the elbows lift up off the floor. It'll bring a little bit of stretch in through the front of the shoulders, pectoral muscles in the chest. Imagine you have one hand on the front ribs. Soften the front ribs down. Breathe into your back ribs, like you want to feel the back ribs pressing into the mat. And lower the arms down. Use your hands to guide the knees together. Take your block again. Slide the block under your tailbone. This is more comfortable if you have a styrofoam block, of course, and you don't have to do this with a block. So if you don't have one, then don't. However, it's nice to have a little bit of elevation. So if you don't like the block, then fold a towel or a blanket and pretend that it's a block. So you still get that little bit of lift through the hips. Take the hands to the inner thighs, guide the inner thighs towards the inner knees. And you want to make sure the block's in the right place. It's not digging into your low back. It's right at the base of the spine, pressing the sacrum up. One hand to the front ribs, draw the front ribs down. Keep your left knee out to the left. Use the right hand, help to guide the right knee up to the sky. Adjust however you need to in order to feel as though you're not going to fall over onto that left side. You might extend the left arm or shift the position of the hips slightly. Two fingers come to the front hip bones on the right side. Draw the two fingers about an inch or two in center towards the pubic bone and upwards 1 inch. Practice that again. As you come up onto the ball of the right foot, have the big toe hover above the mat. Can you find the lower abdominals, the lower transversus abdominis? Reach your right arm out on the floor. Take your two fingers, left hip bone, draw it in and up 1 inch. Here is where you don't want to feel it as you lift the left knee 1 inch or two. It's a very subtle practice, not something that you can rush. Use the left hand, lift the knee all the way up and drop the right knee out to the right. Come all the way onto that knife edge of the right foot. Reach one arm out to balance yourself. I guess it would be the right one here with the left fingers. Front hip bone. Draw inwards, upwards, and lift onto the ball of the left foot. Now you want to feel some movement under the left fingers. Sometimes you have to work to find it. It's very subtle. Left arm reaches out, right hand to the right side. Lift the knee up, very small amount. Use the right hand, lift the knee all the way up and bring the left leg into the chest. Again, if the block is annoying you, then just set it to the side. Tuck the elbows in, send them forward. Draw the shoulders away from the ears. Draw the shoulder blades down the back. Try to make a mind-body connection with the back muscles, which are holding the shoulder blades down the back. Interlace your hands behind the leg. If you have a strap available and the hamstrings are tight, you can slide the strap under the arch of the left foot. Point the toes. Press through the heel. And rotate the ankle. Lower that foot down and change sides. Draw the right leg in, interlace behind the thigh, tuck the elbows in, guide them forward, shoulders away from the ears. The back muscles are much stronger than the shoulder muscles. So start to make that mind-body connection with the back muscles that hold the shoulder blades in place. Sole of the foot to the sky, wake up the hamstrings and the calf muscles. Point the toes. Press through the heel. Rotate the ankle in both directions. Bring the foot back to the mat. Press into your feet to lift the hips up. Slide the block out to the side. Bring both legs into the chest with one hand on each knee. Just make nice small circles on the ceiling. See that there's no space between your low back and the mat so that you're massaging the low back and the kidneys and the back ribs. Separate the knees and feet wide apart and rock all the way over onto one side and then the other, letting the back of each arm stop you from falling all the way to the right or left. Once you come to center, bring the knees together, lift the soles of the feet towards the sky, cross the left ankle on top of the right. Bring the arms down alongside of you. Let the knees soften so that your low back comes to the floor. Very subtle movement again. Start to draw the thighs in towards your chest and feel the low back, not the low back so much as the tailbone, your sacrum, start to curl away from the floor. It's a subtle movement and you don't want to use momentum, so don't rock to get the hips up. Just a nice little lift. Press the navel down towards the spine, press the low spine downwards into the mat. Then release, but only about 5%, just a little shift back and pull back in again. For me, when I started doing these, and honestly, it wasn't that long ago, so you can keep going on your own here while I ramble away. I could not for the life of me get my low back, my tailbone off the floor, not at all. With a little bit of practice, however, it's amazing how quickly those muscles that are supposed to do the work, deep core, lower abdominals, they wake up, especially when you've been practicing yoga. You just have a greater mind-body connection to every part of the body. And you find that you can lift up and you will feel it in the deep belly. We're looking to do about 15. And of course, I have no idea where we are now, but let's say there's 7 left. Lift, soften down, lift. So all the while, most of the low back really stays pressing into the floor. If you're not feeling it in the abdominals, that's more than likely what the problem is. Or you've used that momentum to rock the legs up. 3, 2, 1. Bend the knees, uncross and recross the ankles. Take just a moment, let the abdominals relax. This time, turn the palms of the hands to face up. Soles of the feet towards the sky. Soft knees, so that you can definitely at the start feel your low back rooting down as you slowly start to connect with that deep core lower abdominal strength to curl the tailbone away from the floor. Soften down 5%, lift back up. Only 5 left. By my count, you might be moving a little more quickly or a little more slowly, and that's okay too. Deep bend in the knees, uncross your ankles, wrap the arms around the legs, and just shift gently from side to side. Come all the way over onto your left side. It doesn't really matter which because we're doing both, but I'll cue with the left side first. Forearm is parallel to the top of the mat. Bring your elbow all the way back to the long edge of the mat. With that position, align your heels with the back edge of the mat as well. Your bum or your tailbone with that back edge of the mat. And then you can rest the head on the left hand. So watch that the elbow, tailbone, and heels don't start to creep forward in one way or the other or shift. They're all aligned with the back of the mat. And you want a slight forward rotation of the upper body. If you're starting to lean back, adjust, push into that front hand, sort of send the hips a bit further back so that you've got more of a forward rotation that has the right hip aligned over the left. Draw the knees in a little bit closer to the chest until you feel like there's no strain on the low back. Take the right hand front ribs, draw the front ribs back, and you're going to keep the feet connected, but separate the knees. Now watch, when you lift that right knee up, it's not uncommon to shift back towards that other long edge of the mat. That's why you want the forward momentum, lifting the knee up, and you're not lifting very high. So 15 of these. 2, the right hand is there for support. 3, maybe once in a while, checking the front ribs, drawing back. 5, try not to let that hip rock back. I've got to really watch that for myself. 7, 8. It can be tough to commit to less being more. Now, see if you can also imagine holding your bladder. Lift up through the pelvic floor. 10. 5 to go. Roll the right hip forward. 3, 2, 1, and relax. Working the outer hip, gluteus medius region. People think that your core is just the abdominals, but in fact, glutes, abdominals, low back, mid back, upper back are all a portion of the core. Realign, check, heels, hips, elbow, back with the long edge of the mat. Right hand in front for support. Roll the right hip forward to align on top of the left. One way to check for that is that the knees are stacked evenly. Front ribs back, send the tailbone down, lengthen through your low back, and repeat. If this gets hard on the wrist, then feel free to extend that left arm and rest the head all the way down. Lift. Remember, less is more. 15. 2, 3. Such a small movement. You wouldn't think that it causes the amount of sensation that it does. 6. Last 5. I really hope you're feeling it in the outer hip here because I would not be interested in doing any more than these last 3. That's for sure. 2 and 1. Relax. Lift up, swing the legs around so that you can change sides and find that same alignment. Gratefully giving the right side a rest. So starting forearm parallel with the top of the mat, align the elbow, tailbone, heels, and then rest the head on the hand, or you can extend that arm. Take your left hand to the front ribs, draw the front ribs back. Rock the left hip slightly forward, look at the knees so that they are evenly stacked. Use your left hand for support. I may have said that already. And we'll go through the 15. Less is more. Lift, 2, 3. Maybe notice pelvic floor once again. 5. Imagine holding your bladder. Could use the sucker punch analogy from Monday, kind of zipping in, or the skinny jean analogy. 9, 10, 5, 4, 3, last 2, 1. And I just remembered we do 2 sets, so that's not really the last one. We still have 15 to go. See if the feet, hips, elbow have moved. Realign. Stack the knees. Front ribs back. Zipped up. 15. Hold your bladder. 2. If that gets to be too much, all of those different instructions, then you just pick one and commit to that. 7, 5, 4, 1. Lift yourself up. Swing the legs around, come lying down onto your belly. We can't say that we focused on the core without doing any low back strengthening. So you'll rest your forehead on stacked forearms or stacked hands. We talked a lot about the front hip bones. Push them firmly into the floor here. This is absolutely imperative. Notice if your heels want to drop out to the sides. If that's the case, lift the heels up so they're pointing up towards the sky, and reach from the big toe sides of the feet, like you want the big toes to touch the back wall. Don't scrunch up the feet, so let the baby toes also rest down towards the earth, all 10 toenails connecting with the mat. When you engage your thighs, the kneecaps come off the floor. You want that to be the case. Lift the right leg up. Pull the right thigh bone away from the hip socket. Reach the toes towards the back wall as far as you can, like you want the foot to extend beyond the mat. And now notice if your right front hip bone is pushing into the floor. This is imperative. And then lower and see if your right leg feels longer than the left. And this is how we get taller, by practicing yoga. Right front hip bone, press it back down if it's lifted up. Left front hip bone stays rooted down. You're not lifting the leg very high. Kneecaps off the mat, quads engaged. Lift and reach. That big quadricep muscle, big upper thigh muscle, pull it back towards the end of the mat so that the effort in the exercise has nothing to do with the height of that leg, but the reach towards the back of the mat. Length, not height. and lower. Keep the kneecaps off the mat, legs engaged. Inhale. Exhale, right leg lifts, left foot, press it down. Inhale, right leg lowers. Exhale, left leg lifts. As the left leg lifts, the right leg roots down. Inhale, left lowers. Exhale, right lifts. Lower, lift, and you're just resting the forehead on the hands. Let the shoulders relax. Let the jaw relax. Any of the muscles that really aren't required in this exercise, in this movement, allow them to soften so that you're not expending unnecessary energy. Squeeze the right glutes when you lift the leg and lower. Squeeze the left glutes and lower. 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let the heels drop out to the sides away from each other. Shift your hips from side to side. Rock the pelvis a little bit in case there's any stickiness in through the low back, sacrum. Bend the right knee upwards in the direction of your right elbow and look to your left. Visualize the right thigh bone where it connects near the inner groin, and let that portion of the thigh bone soften down towards the floor. Look down at the mat, slide your right leg back, and change sides. Draw the left knee upwards in the direction of the elbow, and look to the right. Visualize the top of your left femur. Let it release downwards towards the earth. Look to the mat, slide your left leg back. Bring the hands in under your shoulders, turn your toes under ever so slowly. Ease back towards child's pose. If not child's pose, then tabletop on all four. Maybe shift the hips a little side to side for the same principle of getting that stickiness kind of out of the hips, pelvis, low back region. And now here, this is really a beautiful practice for legs up the wall to close. I know not everybody has a wall available, but if you don't have a wall, you could put your calf muscles on a chair or on a couch or anything, a coffee table for that matter, anything that will elevate the legs a little bit. And if you do have a wall, bring a blanket or something for under your head, bring that with you. As I demo, because it's been a while, because I know not everybody has a wall, how to come up into legs up the wall pose. I like to start with my left hip in tight to the wall. If you're in your bedroom, legs up on the bed. So left hip in nice and tight. This is not so that the hamstrings get a good stretch. That's nothing to do with it. Swing the legs up and just stay where you are. What's most important is that the low back is on the mat. See that that is the case. You don't want your hips too close to the wall. Otherwise, your bum starts creeping up the wall and your low back doesn't rest down. You're not pushing the low back down, because as you start to really relax, you'll get that natural curve of the low back, maybe a little bit of space between the low back and the mat. And something under your head, bring it to the top edge of the shoulders. Bring the arms out to the sides, palms facing up, but fairly low. Far from the torso, but not upwards towards the head. Close the eyes. Let go of everything that you have learned about your core. Let go of all of the muscular cues, all of the means of engaging. Set all of that aside. From the feet down towards the pelvis, from the pelvis up along the torso to the crown of the head. Relax. Become familiar with the places that are the very last to let go of tightness or tension. It's different for everyone. Allow the fingers to curl in towards the palms of the hands as they naturally will do. Broaden the collarbones. Allow the outer shoulders to soften down. Let the chin move in just slightly towards the chest. And with eyes closed, look down towards the heart center. Relax all of the delicate muscles around the eyes. Allow the brain to recede away from the forehead as you relax that thinking mind. Unhinge the jaw. Unclench the teeth. Bring the tongue to rest in behind the lower teeth. Right here, right now, exactly as things are, exactly as you are, without changing a single thing. At peace, content, perfect in every way, integrating the benefits of your practice. There is also a way to exit this pose, but first bring your awareness back to the breath and start to breathe more deeply. Bend the knees to press your feet flat against the wall. And if your knees are bent already on a chair or whatnot, then you can just draw the legs in. If the feet are on the wall, one at a time, draw the knees into the chest. So you can draw the right knee in, interlace your hands around that knee, pull it in towards the chest, and at the same time, press your left foot into the wall. Right foot back to the wall, draw the left knee in, interlace your hands around the left leg. As you tug the left leg in, press the right foot into the wall. Hug both legs into the chest, wrap the arms around the legs, press the full length of your spine downwards into the mat. Reach the right arm overhead and rock onto your right side in a fetal-like position. Take 2 full deep breaths here. And press into your left hand, lift yourself up, return to Sukhasana, sitting cross-legged. Have the eyes closed and the hands together at the heart center. Relax the shoulders. A small amount of core awareness. We'll seal the practice with the sound of Om. Take a conscious breath in. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Thank you.